Well, I'm glad ETE sent us snacks because we're going to need them after this whole thing is over, that's for sure. Anyway, we're in the home stretch. If you're just joining us now, there'll be links in the description to the previous videos in this series so you can go and check those out. But if you've been with us the whole time, this is the one you've been waiting for. We're going to wrap it up. So roll the clip, Eric. Hi, didn't see you there. We've put the radiator in, and well, for the most part, at least the most difficult part in my opinion. Now we've raised it up, I've cleaned the floor, I'm going to reattach the lower hose, and possibly I think I might just keep moving with the transmission stuff here because, well, it's up in the air. And I've ordered a transmission mount which will be here a little bit later, or not a transmission mount, I've ordered an engine mount that will be here later for the front, so we'll be replacing that broken one, relax. But we're going to do everything we can up until that point. Starting with this here lower radiator hose. If I'm not mistaken, that was the first thing that we worked on Barbara's van here. And we also remember the crappy Harbor Freight clamps that have now gone away. Goodbye. You will not be missed. I don't know, I'm just gonna start bolting stuff back together because that's where we're at. I mean, the transmission's in. It's really just a matter of bringing it all together at this point. Maybe start at the back, work our way towards the front. Maybe get this bolt in the back here to keep this engine from flopping back and forth. I'm not going to run this one all the way down. I still have those other bolts up top to put in. I'd hate to make it so I couldn't get those in since they're a little more difficult to access. I really did hope that it was going to go together a little bit easier than it came apart. I hoped for that. That needs to go up just a little bit in order for this to go in. Said I'm going to leave a little bit of room so I can get those upper one attached. There. Not so much movement there anymore. Torque converter bolts. It came with new ones. Looks like I was lined up about perfect. I remember I had one that was pointed all the way down. So when I installed the transmission, I tried to install it with one of the torque converter threaded holes lined up with this, and looks like I got lucky. Now this is something I do with torque converter bolts. I don't run them all the way down until I get them all in. But you also can't leave them sticking out too far because as you rotate the engine, they could get bound up between the engine block and the flex plate. So run them down, but don't run them down too far. That little tip there is actually from learning this the hard way. There's plenty of stuff that I've learned the hard way. Ignorance is a great teacher. And it's a good thing they're still lining up. Sometimes there's a knocking noise while the engine runs. See how these torque converter bolts are loose? I've actually cured knocking engines by tightening up these bolts in the past. I think that's one of the reasons they put Loctite on these, in case they work their way loose. But you can get an engine noise from this. You think the engine's coming apart, but really all it is, loose bolts. I'm running them down with the ratchet, but then I'm tightening them with this because the ratchet doesn't quite fit in there right. This just makes it easier to run it down. And I believe that's that. Keep coming around just to make sure. Yep, that's all of them. So again, there's another larger fastener going in back here. I believe there's a engine mount that we'll be dealing with back here. Bracket that fastens there. As some of you may have guessed, this job has taken place over a few days for a variety of reasons. This goes back here. This is why I leave fasteners like in the places where they came out of, or close to it, or with the part. Because I'm not going to remember absolutely everything. So this is my trail of breadcrumbs. Next, let's put that starter in. Now remember, there was a shim on the starter. If you find a shim in a starter, make sure the starter gets its shim back. Why was that so hard? I'll tell you why. Because of the shim. I don't know if you remember before where I snuck in over the top here. A couple of electrical connections. Solenoid wire. Don't forget that. This crazy old thing. Up and around that harness. Attaches there and there. These are 15s, and like most things, I'm not going to tighten these all the way. I'm just getting them run down snug for now. Kind of looks like you got to take the front engine mount to change the starter on this. That's a bummer. How about an axle? Remove this plug. It'd be rather difficult to install an axle with this plug in the way. That seal looks good. I might put a little bit of grease on there before I put the axle in, just to be sure that it doesn't get started up dry. This is Transgel assembly lube. It's probably the same stuff they use to put the transmission together. For the axle, there's the washer, there's the, there's the washer, then there's the nut. But then, before we put the retainer on, is the little wave spring. Got to put this on so that the, oh, that lines up perfect. You got to put it up so that the it lines up with the cotter pin. Wave spring. I guess I decided this needed to be under tension for some reason. Okay, fine, be that way. the end is moving over. Gonna flatten it out. That was easier. Put my cover back in for the crank. Okay, ball joints. See the notch here in the side of it? That's gotta line up with that hole as much as we possibly can. So I'm gonna get my pry bar in here, wedge this down, try to get, well, I might not even need the pry bar. Do you just not want to respond to treatment? Is that it? You got other things to do? Hammers are good. No, hammers are awesome. I think the bolt goes through this way. And if it goes through, that means you got that crescent little thing lined up right. Remember, we still have to install our steering stop, which I'll do here in a minute. And then our steering stop needs to go back in. Forget to put these in. Maybe you'll overextend the rack. Not sure. I'm saying it probably wouldn't be good. And I'm sure you've noticed the brakes also. Hang on. One thing at a time. Axle. Up through the top. Weirdly. And then back down, guided into place. Huh. All right, well. Yay! Bungee cords are handy. Now this is in the way. So why not put that back into place, or at least enough into place to where it's not in the way. Hammers are good. Washer. Giant nut. I'll put it on the end now. It's going on this way. This time we'll do a preemptive strike on the cotter pin. Mr. Ball Joint, please go in. Got lucky once. Lucky twice. I think I'm going to start working up top. That lower brace that I have on the floor over there, I'm going to wait to install that because remember we still have a bolt back here to fasten down, and I don't want to put anything in the way to interfere with that. So I'm going to move up top and see what we can get together up there. Now that the van is down, I'm going to start at the back, work my way forward. Start at the back with those engine mount fasteners, which I left up here. They're 3, all equally the same size, thankfully. I'm going to run those in. And then the bell housing bolts coming forward. I'm just basically going to work my way from the back to the front. Starting to wonder if I left that loose enough underneath. I don't really have any wiggle. Take a 4x4. I'm gonna stick it under the transmission. And that same spot that I had before when I put that other fastener in. See if that made it better. Like most things with this van, it just can't seem to be easy. All right, I'll put a little more stress on that mount, just a little bit. That might be success. If there's just one started, hopefully an avalanche will follow. Yay! Let's see if we get those other two. Yeah, much easier now that we've got one of them started. Bell housing bolts. There are 4 left. I'm just going to go around, fill them all in. Much easier than the engine mount bolt. And this last one goes through that bracket, goes over the starter and all that stuff. Remember our friend Mr. Crank Sensor? Well, now's a good time. I'll have to go back in. And of course, there's the electrical connection. I don't want to forget that part. And I'm pushing those little locks back in as well. Let's move on to the rest of these electrical connections. We've got some linkage to hook back up, some transmission fluid to put in. We're getting close. There's this bracket that holds this coolant hose on. I'm going to restore now. Right, well, the shift cable bracket has got to go back in here, up underneath this engine mount. I'm here now, might as well reattach at least the bracket. This one's a 13. We've got some electrical connections to restore, and my transmission lines also. An 8 or a 10? What do you think? An 8? Hey, you were right. That's good. Transmission lines. The hoses are brand new, the cooler's brand new, but and the radiator, most importantly. If the radiator wasn't new, we would definitely have to concern ourselves with flushing it out. You saw the debris that we've seen along the way with this job, and that's the last thing you want inside your transmission, is a bunch of gunk floating around. And if it's in the transmission, it's in the cooler inside the radiator, or if it's got an external cooler, it's in that. So those things really should be flushed when you're replacing a transmission. But we have a new radiator. Best case scenario, actually. I've got a plan. I think without the dipstick in place, it's going to be easier to fill up the transmission. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my funnel directly in the hole where the dipstick goes, dump like 5 quarts of transmission fluid in there, which should be enough to at least get things started. Then I'll put the dipstick tube down inside there. But for now, I think we're in a good spot. I'm going to reconnect this shift linkage. All I have to do is pretty much push it back down. At least I think that's all I have to do. Just took a little more squeezing. There. Now it's all the way down in there. So that's reconnected. All of our electrical connections are reconnected. Cooler lines are reconnected. Let's dump some fluid in that transmission, put the dipstick tube back in. There's something I'd like to mention before I put the fluid in. First, I will be using the fluid. Yes, it is a synthetic fluid that that ETE has provided for me with the transmission. So this is the fluid that came with the transmission. They've got a warranty on it and everything. All this stuff is dependent upon the fluid that you put in it. I'm gonna make sure I use the stuff that they gave me. However, I reached out to Peak and had asked them if they had transmission fluid, and they sent me this. They were kind enough to send me this stuff. But even though we won't be using their transmission fluid today, we will be using their coolant and our brand new radiator. So thank you, Peak, for sending this stuff along. We will certainly put it to good use. Now, I'm going to remove the plug for the dipstick. As I said, I'm just going to put my funnel straight down in here. I don't know how many quarts of automatic transmission fluid this transmission takes. I'm assuming it's at least 7, but I'm going to start with 5 here, just to be on the safe side. Now, if you have trouble pouring transmission fluid into a transmission, I don't know if you remember, we talked about a while back the vent that was on the top of that shift linkage. If that vent gets clogged for any reason, it won't allow the air to escape as the transmission fluid's going in, and it will be more difficult to fill. I mean, it's not a lot of air that passes through there, but there's enough that as you're pouring something like this in, it's going to displace the air that's inside. So if you have difficulty pouring it in, check that vent, make sure it's venting. Now I'm hoping that they filled the torque converter. Now, it's kind of late to think about this, but you've got to make sure that the torque converter has fluid in it before you start it up. I never checked. I assumed that it was filled up when it came in. Maybe that's something that was in the instructions and I screwed up big time. I sincerely hope that is not the case. I'm going by most of the transmissions I've been sent have had fluid in the torque converter because they dyno test it. They actually have a dynamometer that they can hook the transmission up to, check its shifting and everything before they ship it out. In order to do that, they have to fill the fluid up and with the torque converter and everything else. So I'm hoping I didn't screw up big time here. That all went in really easy. And definitely have some fluid in there. I'm gonna put the dipstick tube in because from here on out I can fill up whatever else is needed through that tube. Here be my dipstick tube. Just gonna leave the dipstick out for now. They gave me new O-rings. I don't know what those go to, but I'm pretty sure that this one goes to the dipstick tube. Good, it broke. That seemed like it was gonna be a long fight for nothing. I'm just going to put a little bit of silicone on this O-ring before I install it. Hopefully it goes together easier. Yeah. Insert whatever's going on in your dirty little mind right now. Right, well, we have our special stud nut where the stud holds the dipstick tube on, and then the nut holds on some grounds on the outside. I don't know what it is about fasteners on this thing. They don't want to go back in. Looking at this, I think there's also an attachment for this electrical connector. Maybe I did it wrong. Maybe it needs to go under. Maybe even this. Hey, that's it. Now for those grounds. Different size. Gotta make sure those ground connections are secure. Very important. Now what? All right. One of the things I forgot to do when installing the radiator was reconnect the connector. Oh, I killed it. Reconnect the connector for the fans. They will need electricity flowing to them in order for them to operate properly. Any more surprise electrical connections hanging around? Well, we'll keep an eye out for them. I think I'm just going to keep, I don't have my engine mount yet. I'm just going to keep rolling along with installing parts here, get our battery tray and all that stuff in. I'm going to put the dipstick in just to avoid getting debris or anything down in there. There, that'll help seal that up. But let's get some of this stuff in here, put this brace back in, get this front bumper attached again. I know I said that, you know, just in case there's condenser woes, that it would be nice to be able to access them, but we don't know anything about that yet. First, let's just get it to go backwards and not leak coolant anymore. That would be good things. Battery tray. This gets tricky because remember our cruise control was fastened to this, which is sitting right up there. Plus we got one of them there electrical connections that goes to said cruise control. But if memory serves, I think what we got here is something like that. And then this will be down in like this. I like that much better right there. And I'm also hoping that our Q-bond held. It's in there pretty solid and looks to be sealed up. So that might be the perfect use for something like Q-bond. These are kind of one's bigger than the other. So fairly, you can sort of tell who goes where. And there's one final one, goes down here. I suppose we can't forget to plug that cruise control in, which I almost did until just now. Those 13s, they look like 13s. They be 13s. I'm going to put this support across the top. Now, what I did with the old one is I just slipped this off of the top of the radiator. It worked fine. The new radiator comes with new rubber thingies there, bushings, whatever you want to call them. So I'm going to remove these old ones and then install them in the new locations. All I really need is these fasteners, but it looks like they're held in place. All right, well, we'll just fight with you, Chrysler. If that's the way you want to do it, that's what we'll do. I'll show you. I am the smart. S-M-A-T. I mean S-M-A-R-T. Hood latch. And as I said, I'm moving on this now because I think I'm going to have to attach airbox stuff to this. Well, it came off of there. Shouldn't it go back on? Oh, I get it. This needs to fit between this pinch weld here. So that's got to go over that. Now we're cooking with gas. When we had to move the overflow bottle out of the way for this guy. And then we've got our two fasteners for the radiator. Those of you that have done this before are probably screaming the whole time, Eric, you're doing it wrong. It's all wrong. That's not going anywhere. Never gonna happen. Overflow. Hood latch. We'll need this to drive it. The hood latch, that is. I've actually seen a hood come up at speed on the road. Not a pleasant experience. Just saying. Now when I tighten this down, I'm going to try to tighten it down. Remember I made marks where it was. It doesn't look like it's really going to be an issue around any of that. But I just want to be sure. Fans may start anytime the ignition is on. So you best watch out. Those fans are out to get you. We're running out of parts. Yay! Our little shroud, our friend the shroud. If I remember, it's supposed to go up under. How about that airbox? Remember, it fits down into those two pegs on that thing that I never needed to take off to begin with. Way down here. And then it goes into this guy. Almost like I planned it. Air filter. Other part of air filter. Yeah, I'm gonna say, guys, you could have maybe come up with a better air filter design. Just throwing that out there. That is really not an easy air filter to change at all. Less and less parts all the time. Goes in there and also in underneath. Two fasteners here. We're done up here. Yeah, I need to put the battery in, but I'm gonna wait and do that last. We can just set it in there for now. There we go. Might as well clean the terminals while we're here. Probably should be installing a new one. We talked about this battery not doing so hot earlier. Barbara said that she had one. When she brings it, I'll be sure to install it, but for now, I can definitely clean these terminals and everything up. And I'm just gonna clean this one, but not install it. And I'll also, of course, tighten the hold down. Way better. I really like this battery terminal cleaner. Here's that battery hold down I told you about. Not going anywhere. I can never figure out what size these actually are. Good. I'm thinking we're pretty much wrapped up with most of our stuff up top. Let's get the rest of the bumper attached underneath and the brace and all that stuff underneath. Hopefully our engine mount will show up soon. Hopefully. I dare say that was like that before. It was like that when I got here. That's the second Simpsons reference in so many minutes. This is up kind of high. I'm gonna bring it down a little. Now I got these little plastic things that hold this lower part into the front. Since I'm running out, I'm gonna save this one for the end. That front bumper's attached. We got 2 of these fasteners in the front here for this front engine brace, whatever. One in the back, and then that thing. Ones in the front are simple enough. One here, one up over there. I say simple enough like it is simple. And this guy back here was 18. There's one that's shorter. I had it set over on this side. So I'm probably gonna have to deal with it over there. But these all appear to be the same side, but I separated this one to remind myself that it was different. That's just how it goes. Once I get one up, I'll be fine, but I'm going to say that the shorter one will probably present itself at some point as far as where it goes. Oh yeah. And then there was this one. I'm gonna say that short one goes. It's a smaller diameter than the rest. It's kind of the only place this one can go. Time to run them down. They're 21s. I'm gonna have to use the socket on that one. And this one's a 19, I think. We're just waiting on an engine mount now, but while we're waiting, I can put the wheels back on, reflash the computer, sweep up a little bit, and hopefully the engine mount will show up soon. I'm gonna use a torque stick putting them on. The engine mount showed up, but it's the wrong one. Not going to worry about that for now. It's just the front one. The one in the back's holding it up just fine. It's not going to go anywhere, and I'm not going to be hot rodding it around, and I will get the correct one before this is all said and done. However, I can reflash the computer, get that going. I can fill up the coolant, and also get the transmission fluid where it's supposed to be, run it through the gears, do the finish work before I actually obtain that engine mount. This whole radiator hose thing is such an issue. Got me a better idea. I'll worry about that after. I'll put it all together when I'm done. For now, I can do what I need to do, which is fill this up with coolant. With coolant from Peak. That should do for now. Might as well hit the overflow while we're at it though. I see this cable is not doing so great. And it's attached for now, we're replacing it. I don't need to worry about it being finished at the moment. I'm gonna get my scan tool, plug in, clear the transmission, and hopefully we'll be driving and backwards. New updated software on the Encore. They have like diagnostics for life. They got a bunch of stuff. But anyway, new vehicle. I'm not sure where to find what I need. EMCC status. See what that tells us. This thing is running a lot faster since the updates. Couldn't find the repair information I was looking for. Couldn't find it in the Encore. I'm gonna look into that in a bit. For now, I'm gonna start it up, run it, put it through the gears, warm it up, put the fluid level where it's supposed to be, take it out for a drive and see what happens. Yes, I've got no front engine mount yet. And who knows how the transmission is gonna shift. But if it's got reverse, it's better than it was when I started. What's the matter? You don't want to be fixed? Let's try this again. Here goes. Haha! We got reverse. Traction control is kicking in. I just turned it off. We got forward gears. I do believe we have a working transmission. I'm going to let it run, bleed the cooling system out, let it warm up, back it up, and make sure the fluid level's good. That's going to take a little bit of adjusting, I'm sure. We missed the shot, but I just had it up in the air and checked for leaks. Everything transmission side and all that stuff looks great. I'm gonna lower it down all the way down to the ground. I'm gonna back part of it outside so I can bleed the cooling system so I can run it. And then we'll take it for a drive. Well, first, what we're gonna do is top off the transmission fluid and then we'll take it for a drive. Just for the heck of it, I'm gonna check the transmission fluid before I back it out. Yeah, we're gonna need to add some. I think I'm getting it off the inside of the dipstick tube, so I'm just gonna let that run. I'm gonna back it up like I said, put it outside, heat it up, bleed the cooling system out, and then see where we're at. I'm gonna back it up. I'm really gonna do it. It backs up. That's a good sign. I'm gonna go get some coolant. Come on, coolant fans. This smoke is not something I'm worried about. It's something I often see when replacing components like this. There's rust inhibitors or whatever on the outside of them, and sometimes you just see that. Looks like we could use about a half a quart. Then maybe it could use just a little more, but I'm going to take it out and drive it and see where it is after the drive. Someone installed some cat pelt on the seat belt. Let's drive. Reverse! Yes, we have no front engine mount. We kind of didn't have one before. What's the diff? No, we're fully warmed up at this point. Second. Third. And somebody's stopping in front of me. Flawless. I mean, flawless. It's just perfect. And somebody else pulls out in front of me. Brakes sound a little rusty. And shush about my gloves on the steering wheel. Not gonna hurt anything. Awesome. Runs awesome. I'm very proud of this. Very proud of this. Barbara's gonna be very happy. Fixing it forward is moving forward. That makes me really, really happy. I've wanted this for a long time. Got a few more things to do to this van, give it back to Barbara, bring in the next project. For now, let's turn this thing around, go back to the shop, check the fluid level, and wrap this part of this series up. Well, I know engine mount. If I get a chance to throw that in as part of this video, I will. If not, well, we'll throw it in somewhere else. But really, I mean, 4 fasteners, 3 that hold it to the front core support, 1 that goes through the front. It ain't hard. See you back at the shop. Gone for a nice little drive, and we backed up. Transmission shifts flawlessly. It's perfect. The ride is nice. It's not a perfect van, but it's way better than it was when it showed up here. We'll reset this level, close this one out. See, I'm kind of glad I did what I did because it's almost up to that top dot. It's right in between the 2 dots. I'm really happy with that level. I'm not going to touch it. As long as you're between these 2 dots, you're good. Fans work too. Let's wrap this up. Looky what I got. Whole new front mount here. and it's just going to go in place of the old mount that was broken. Pretty simple. A little better. Well, thanks for sticking with me this whole time. We now have a successful repair of the radiator and automatic transmission in this 1998 Chrysler Town Country for the Fixing It Forward project. And it has been a long, strange trip indeed. A couple of things I'd like to cover in closing. First of all, the reprogramming of the transmission computer. I was not able to do that effectively with the tool that I had, unfortunately. But it shifts fine, it drives fine. I contacted ETE and I asked them about this, and I said, okay, well, I'm not able to do the reprogramming that you had asked about, and they said, as long as it's shifting fine, I should be fine. So I'm going to leave that alone. If it becomes an issue at a later date, I'll be sure to let you know. We'll put a link in the description to a future video about how I solved that issue or whatever. Outside of that, the front transmission mount, I'm glad we got a chance to replace that. When we took it out for that initial test drive and there was no front transmission mount, one of the things I noticed was there was a little bit of wheel hop on takeoff. So if you have that symptom in one of these vehicles, you might want to check that front mount. Now that we replaced it, it's all gone. As far as the cruise control goes, I broke that little plastic port on the side there for that vacuum chamber. There's no problems with the cruise control, that's worked, there's no vacuum leaks, no issues there. Very happy about that. So all in all, this whole thing was a success. We are now driving down the road, shifting smoothly, and there are no leaks or issues with the radiator. Yay! I would like to thank ETE Transmission, or ETE Remanufacturing in particular, also Radiator.com, Peak, and SunX for helping us out with the transmission jack. There'll be a link in the description to all of them. While you're down there in the description, if you haven't seen any of the previous videos in this series, there'll be links to all of those down there. There will also be a link to the full version of this video, which is available to premium members over at my website. Speaking of my website, if you're over there, if you have automotive questions, I would ask that you head there. There's a welcome video to let you know about all of our amazing features to help you there. If you wish to connect with me socially, I can be found on Google+, Facebook, Twitter, and now Instagram. Close each of my videos with be safe, have fun, stay dirty, and I'll see you next time on the next episode of Fixing It Forward.